Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona is now here with me. Thank you so much for being here. I do want to start with the immigration plans. He said he wants to re-examine the status of people who are in this country legally, which may include naturalized citizens, blocking migration from, quote, third world countries, pausing all asylum decisions from any country, and calling for, quote, reverse migration.
Well, I think this is consistent with what we've seen from this president to date, rounding up people in their community. He said he was going to go after drug dealers, gang members, criminals. What we've seen so far is a little bit of that and a lot of just breaking up communities, going after people like Kelly Yu, who is in an ICE detention center in Phoenix, who I visited, who is a business owner. She's got 70 employees. She fled China 20 years ago, fleeing communist China, came to this country. She is undocumented. Her mom's a U.S. citizen, her kid's a U.S. citizen, sister's a U.S. citizen. She has a deportation order. She is no threat to anybody. There are hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of these people.
But these are legal immigrants that he's talking about.
He's kicked out legal immigrants already. This is kind of more of the same from this president. When he says things like third world countries, what is he really saying? I think what he's saying is he doesn't want brown people in our country. And that is disturbing, and it's un-American.
The Trump administration says the man accused of the shootings of the two National Guard members wasn't vetted. Now, to be clear, CNN is told that that's not true. There were multiple rounds of extensive vettings. But all told, there are about 190,000 Afghans in the United States who were allowed to come after the military withdrawal. Are you confident that the process was thorough, the vetting process?
Well, I think what happened to Andrew Wolf and Sarah Beckstrom, horrific. She died. I'm praying for her family. I'm praying for him to recover from his injuries. It is a really horrible thing. There needs to be an investigation and find out, why did this guy do this? Was he radicalized in Afghanistan or, here in the United States? And if it makes sense to change some things, I think we need to do that. I used to have a commanding officer in the Navy that used to say, if you're not changing something, it's getting worse.
So the vetting system doesn't.
I think looking and changing processes is something the government should be doing in every government agency, like all the time. But this president has an immigration policy right now that is not helping our country, that is tearing communities apart. We need comprehensive immigration reform. He's kicking out people, that came here legally, that pose no threat to anybody. But go after the criminals, the drug dealers, the gang members.
I just want to be clear on what you're saying. Are you saying that all 190,000 Afghans in America should be re-vetted, that the process?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
These are individuals that were fleeing the Taliban. Many of them worked alongside U.S. service members and provided a valuable service to the United States of America and deserve an opportunity, to resettle in our country. We're a country of immigrants.
An opportunity, but with renewed vetting?
Well, people should be vetted. Hey, if you identify, a certain number of individuals that you have another question about, I think that's fine to do that. But going after a large group of people, most of which I think are just trying to live their lives, raise their families, go to work every day, the U.S. government harassing them, years later does not make a lot of sense to me.
You said our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders. That video, I don't need to tell you, sparked a lot of outrage from the administration. Yes, they launched an FBI investigation. Has the FBI knocked on your door yet? Have they asked?
Well, first, let me start by saying we said something very simple and non-controversial, and the President of the United States said, hang them, execute them, prosecute them. In my case, Secretary Hegseth said, prosecute him under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for, by the way, reciting the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's obviously ridiculous. But this is an attempt to silence me, to get me to not hold this administration accountable. We have a president who doesn't understand the Constitution, who installed an unqualified Secretary of Defense. I cannot think of a Secretary of Defense in the history of our country that is less qualified than Pete Hegseth. He should not be in this position. He should have been fired after Signalgate, and now he should be fired again for this, if this is accurate. So he's not going to get me to back down. But what he is doing is sending a very chilling message across our entire nation, not only in the military, but the civilian workforce. Who's going to speak up and say anything if they see something that's unlawful or see something waste, fraud, and abuse? Why would anyone speak out if they can go and try to prosecute a U.S. senator?
Is it happening?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was notified. I was notified about this through a tweet, the same tweet that you saw. And that demonstrates how unserious this administration is. They care more about the publicity about this than the process or the law. I haven't been notified by the Navy.
By the Navy or the FBI? So no court-martial?
We got something from the FBI, but the thing we received from the FBI, just like the president saying that we should be hanged, the thing we received from the FBI is more intimidation.
What did it say?
Well, it just said there was no point of contact. It had something about coming in for an interview. And the question here should be, why did the FBI decide to do this? Or do you think maybe the president told the FBI director to go after these 6 members of Congress? So more bullying and intimidation, but Dana, I'm not backing down. These guys don't scare me. They're not serious people. I mean the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense. Neither of them.
Senator Mark Kelly, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
I want to hear about the stories that you heard when you were on the ground in Los Angeles for this hearing that we just teased, about the stories that immigrants, I imagine some who are not U.S. citizens and some who actually might be U.S. citizens, and what they had to tell you guys.
Yeah, so first of all, we heard the story of a U.S. citizen who was on her way to work. And as she tried to tell them, listen, I'm a U.S. citizen, they would not listen, and she was taken into custody. We also heard about just the conditions, the horrific conditions that human beings are being kept in, the unsanitary conditions. But here's the reality. We went to L.A. I've been to Chicago to hear stories about how much force is being used when people are being detained. But I can go right home, and I know the stories of my constituents. I know about a young lady who's only 21 years old and had consistently showed up to her appointments, and she was nabbed at one of those appointments. Her family said, make sure she's got her diabetic medication. They tried to give it to them. They would not take it. Ultimately, 5 days later, when they didn't give her her medication, they had to take her to a hospital. They then put her back into custody, and ultimately there were issues with literally, I won't get so graphic, but involving urine and some other things.
Feel free to get graphic.
Well, I mean, there were allegations that because they were actually depriving them of water, that they literally were having to drink their own urine. This can't be America. But obviously, in Trump's America, this is exactly what he wants. And the idea that one person can get out of line and commit such a horrific crime as shooting 2 of our National Guardsmen, 2 National Guardsmen that never, ever asked to be here. In fact, we know the young lady that lost her life, specifically, we're saying that this is a waste of time. But now you want to go against every single immigrant. That doesn't make sense. And it's frankly not who we are, because if that's the case, let's talk about the white supremacists and how many of them need to be kicked out of this country, because I can guarantee you I can track down more crimes that they've committed, because overall immigrants have a lower crime committal rate than white supremacists. But we don't want to talk about that in this country.
I mean, the FBI has for years said that homegrown terrorism is actually a much bigger issue than anything from any other country. One of the things that we keep hearing the president say is that he is going to denaturalize people. There should be people denaturalized, people who don't adhere to Western civilization values, whatever that means. I'm curious what you think about that, because one, it's not something he can do, right? He can't go around waving a wand and denaturalize people. There's a process. He's not supposed to.
Okay.
There's a legal process to that.
Yeah.
But what do you think is actually behind that? Because he probably knows that he can't do it. But what do you think he's trying to signal?
I think he is trying to do.
What you have here is Donald getting humiliated in these brutal interviews. And I think it's important for senators like Mark Kelly to just cut through the BS. to just slice through it and go beyond the innuendo and go beyond the implication and say it. That what Donald Trump is doing is effectively implementing a race-based policy. Right? And I think a lot of people kind of like, and this happens in the media sometimes, and some politicians, where they treat Donald Trump as good faith. And they say, oh, he's implementing a policy, and whether or not we agree with this policy, and let's debate the policy. But it's like no one's saying what it actually is as you start that debate. They're all using his framing. Oh, he wants to pause immigration from third world countries. First of all, he wants a travel ban, a total ban. So let's use the proper terminology. And then also, third world country has no actual definition. It's a definition that used to exist in the Cold War. And it included, yes, some poor countries, but technically Sweden and Switzerland and Ireland were third world countries. Right? Because they were not aligned strictly with either the Soviets, the second world, or the US, the first world. That was the traditional three-world definition. Now it just means poor country, I guess, but what Donald really means by it is brown people, non-white people. He wants to ban those people. That's what he wants to do. And when you just strip away all the kind of like, all the double speak and all of the innuendo and the dog whistling, that's what it is. And you need senators to say that Donald Trump is growingly a far-right totalitarian that wants to build a white nationalist state. And once you start saying it openly and plainly, people can't hide away from the truth.